Hey everyone. So we're getting pretty close to the running of the Boston Marathon. And it's a race that I truly love. But there are three things about this race that I hate. Well, maybe there's two that I strongly dislike, and the third one I absolutely hate.
With the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're gonna hear about it.
So the first one is the constant full morning of being herded around like cattle. And I know that's true to a certain degree for all major marathons, but for Boston, it just seems like such a long morning of going from point to point, waiting in huge lines, and just getting stuck out in the elements. Depending on how you get to the start line, most people do that by picking up the bus at Boston Commons. And, there's maybe no way around it. There's just a lot of people. But I feel like I get there super early and I still spend just hours and hours, or it feels like it, waiting in that line, out in the cold elements, trying to get on those buses. And for a day when you're kind of trying to peak your energy for the race, it sure feels like you spend a lot of time standing around getting herded through like you're one of the cattle from Yellowstone. So that's my first annoyance. Number two is the gear check. And for those of you who don't know, the gear check at Boston is in the city of Boston, and you leave your stuff in your Boston Commons, then typically get on the bus, and then you come back and your stuff's waiting for you when you finish the marathon, which is great. It's nice to have that stuff there. But that is typically 3 hours maybe before the start of the marathon. So you're checking all your stuff many hours before the start of the race, heading up to Hopkinton, waiting around, going to Athlete Village, and it just feels like a long time to be without, the stuff that you typically like to prepare with. And obviously there's a lot of workarounds. You're gonna go to the Salvation Army or wherever beforehand and get a bunch of throwaway clothes. And there's ways to adapt.
Could I be wearing any more clothes?
But I just personally much prefer to warm up and to do my pre-race routine in the clothes that I'm comfortable with. And also it's just nice to have access to my phone.
Really? That's great.
No, I said we are totally booked.
2 at 9? Perfect.
I don't like to race with my phone. And so typically, I'm leaving my phone and any valuables in the gear bag that I leave in Boston. So I'm kind of out of communications with everybody for several hours before the race, which is kind of nice. It's just nice to be able to chat with friends. So that's, to me, is a bit of an annoyance. I definitely prefer the races where you can just drop your stuff and have access to that same stuff at the end of the race. And number three is the big one for me. And I just find this one makes me really uncomfortable, and I actually dread it more than going up Heartbreak Hill. It's just can be very uncomfortable. And that's the bus ride from Boston to Hopkinton, and specifically not being able to use the bathroom. And it's probably about an hour. I'm always careful about using the bathroom in Boston Commons before I get on the bus. But there's still a lineup after that. And you might wait around 20 minutes to get on a bus, at least, after you use the bathroom. And then it's the long bus ride to Hopkinton, which to me feels like it just drags on and on. And, this might be a 47-year-old male problem, but I just have a hard time on a race morning not going to the bathroom for that period of time. I'm usually trying to be pretty good about my hydration, and you might argue, hey, just don't drink so much, and I do take that approach. I don't drink as much as I usually would, but it's still an issue. And actually a big part of it is around the carb loading, right? I mean, for those of you familiar with carb loading, for every gram of carbs you take in and your body's storing, you're storing with it 4 grams of water. So my body's typically not used to having that much carbs, which means it's not typically getting that much water retention as well. So even if I'm not drinking a lot on race morning, just in the last 2 days of carb loading, I've got a lot of water in my system. And so with all that water in my system, going an hour on race morning is just really tough for me. And I get on that bus and I just dread it. Like, I know that it's okay when I get on, but 45 minutes later, I know I'm going to be extremely uncomfortable. Then you finally get off the bus and he's so excited, and it's such an awesome scene. Like, Athlete Village is, one of the greatest places on earth on marathon morning, and I'm not even taking it in. I am scrambling trying to find a porta potty, which they do a good job of. I'll give Boston a kudos on that one. They have Athlete Village just filled with porta potties, but I just feel like it takes away from the experience. I would definitely get in line for an alternate bus route that had a stop halfway that just gave you a chance to get off the bus for 5 minutes, have another station of porta potties there, and then go on your way the rest of the way. To me, that would just make a huge difference, and would make marathon morning just a lot more enjoyable. And it just removed one of the things I get most nervous about. I don't dread the race too much. I've done so many races that every year I would say the nerves get less and less, but it's probably every year my prostate gets a bit bigger too, so the problems with the porta potties just gets worse and worse. So anyways, too much information, but that's the one that kills me. So there's a lot of things to love about the Boston Marathon, and I love the Boston Marathon. But those are mine. That's my list of grievances. Not to turn this into a gripe fest, but...
Oh, God.
Quiet, you'll get yours in a minute.
Leave in the comments if are there any other things that annoy you about the Boston Marathon, or any suggestions that you have that would make the race seem more pleasant. I think part of the issue is that 2 years ago I got spoiled when I ran in the professional race, and you just don't have to deal with the same issues. For the getting corralled, you still have to get up early, you have to meet early, but you do it in the luxury of the hotel, and then you get on the coach instead of the school bus, which has bathrooms, and it just makes everything a little bit easier, more comfortable, and you're definitely not standing around outside as much, and you have easy access to the restrooms. Your gear check is in the elite tent, and they bring all the stuff back down for you. So it, you get a bit spoiled when you've had exposure to those things.